Hey everybody, it is Wintermute coming to you from the think tank. So I'm going to review Flora and Ulysses. This is a basically a kids movie that was made for Disney Plus. I'd never even heard of it until the other day when my son asked me to watch it with him. He said he'd already seen it and he really enjoyed it and he wanted to watch it again. Okay. I didn't expect much. Because I've certainly watched movies that just to be able to spend time with my kids that, this is kind of boring and dull. But he clearly enjoyed it, so I wanted to spend time with him, and maybe I would get surprised and it would turn out to be really good. I was surprised. I'm going to digress, and it's going to seem real weird, but bear with me. So I can say with a fair degree of certainty that by anybody's standards, I had a pretty shitty childhood. Without a doubt. Yeah, I can say that with a fair degree of certainty at this point. Those aren't just my words or my opinion. That I've had input from other people. And then I got older and I decided to go into law enforcement. And I did law enforcement for 10 years. And boy, there's something, so right there, those two things, you might look at me and go, wow, this dude's going to be a cynic. He is going to be burned out on life. He is going to hate everyone and everything around him. He's going to be bitter and angry. And they would be wrong. And I'm going to explain why. And I'm telling, this all will feed into the movie review. So the reason that I am not such a cynic for having such shitty shit happen to me when I was younger, and then having to put up with some shit when, as a professional level, when I went for the 10 years I was in law enforcement, is because when I look at these cynical attitudes that so many people have, and even people that I worked with right next to me, and people who maybe I grew up with, and who were around me during that problem and suffered through it too, I look at their cynical attitudes and I go, but that's not a justified attitude. It's not a justifiable attitude. Because when you actually apply, you look at why you think that way and scrutinize it, it doesn't hold up. It actually doesn't hold up. I will give, now I want to say, before I go any further, I understand that there's the modern definition of what it is to be a cynic. And then there is cynicism, which is the school of philosophy, and they are definitely connected. But there's but cynicism is not necessarily line up with the modern usage of the word cynic. And I'm not a Greek or I'm not a philosophy guy. It's not I understand the basics of it, but I'm not going to go deep into that. We're talking more about the modern usage of the word cynic, where you are bitter and skeptical about, to a point of bitterness about everything and anything around you and whatever the case is. But over, and certainly people have the right to be cynical about certain things. Like there's a lot of people that are cynical about politics, but they're not cynical about this or that, because everybody has hot button issues, whatever the case is. But overall, I am not a cynical person. I'm not a bitter person. I'm not, there are certainly things that upset me, but the reason I'm not, and this is the most important part, is because when I apply that attitude, which I have thought that, when I really looked at it and the thought process behind it and compared it to empirical evidence around me, it didn't hold up. That cynical attitude was unjustified. As crappy as my childhood was, I was still lucky enough to be born in at the very least, a Western democracy. Well, a democracy, and then we can go into further into I'm glad I was born in America, which I would still argue is the freest country in the world, though I may be critical of that at times. I'm able-bodied. I certainly had no silver spoon in my mouth. I had no silver spoon. I can guarantee you that. But it was not a. But when I look back at it, it's like, look, I got through it, and I'm here. And then all my time on law enforcement, you know, I hear people, oh, this, and then everybody sucks. And it's like, really? Everybody sucks? Did you not remember when they told you at the academy that, generally speaking, 20% of the population causes 80% of the problem? I learned that that's very true. So that being realized, not just hearing that, but realizing that that's really the truth, how can you just say something and mean it, say it and actually mean it, that most people suck? It's like, really, where's your evidence for that? Or most people are criminals, or most people are this, or, you know, everybody's just, you know, it's like, really, where do you get that from? And that's the thing. Even though I dealt with real dirtbags, and I could use stronger language than that, real dirtbags, the truth is the vast majority of people I dealt with were good, decent people who deserved the best public service I could give them. And so even after 10 years, and I did 3 years in the jail to start before I transferred out to road patrol. Even after all that, I'm like, God, this cynical attitude just doesn't hold up to scrutiny. Why you feel this way? You know, now we can go, that's a whole nother discussion. You know, and we can get, logical fallacies like remembering the hit, or just remembering the hits and forgetting the misses, and you know, all this other stuff. But that's not really what I'm going on about. What I'm going on about is now how does all this relate to a kids movie on Disney Plus? Because the core theme of this kids movie is cynicism, and while it's perfectly okay to be cynical, you should not allow that cynical outlook to ruin the rest of your life. And that's you know, that's probably how I would sum up what this movie is really about. So this movie took me completely by surprise, because it really did hit home with me on a personal level because of my past experience. But you know, so with that said, though, was it still a good movie? Yeah, oh yeah, I think it was absolutely. I think it was a great movie because it is very intelligently written. It does not treat the viewer, and assuming the viewer is going to be, you know, a fairly young kid, you know, the main character was probably about 10. So, you know, 8 to 10 to 14, 15, however, that's kind of the age range that you would expect to be the first people to watch this. But it did not treat them like they were stupid. It really was very open about, and it really didn't sugarcoat what the frustrations of the main character were, and even some of the other people she was dealing with, and because her family and friends, it went into, because really, even though the main character identifies herself in her own internal monologue as a cynic, a 10-year-old identifying herself as a cynic. So already that should tell you that this movie is not like, it's not dumbed down, because that's not something you normally hear a 10-year-old say. And I was really like, what the heck? What is this movie? Where is this going? Really? And the way she presented it was actually very poignant. And so it doesn't treat the viewer like they're stupid. And, you know, now additionally, like you see with a lot of more, you know, from of course, using Shrek as the example, there's multiple layers of things going on in the movie. So the kids will enjoy the movie and enjoy that layer of humor and entertainment that is geared towards them. But then there's another layer that is for the adults, for the parents who are kind of sitting there going, oh, another animated movie that I have to sit through just to make my kids happy. Wait, did they just make a penis joke? You know, so, you know, this movie had elements of that, where there were definitely multiple layers that you could appreciate it on. So a younger kid could watch it and appreciate it and love it for all it's worth, but then an adult could watch it and really go, wow, this is a much better movie than I anticipated, because it actually was intelligent. It was intelligently written and talked about real world issues in a tactful way, but not a way that treated anybody like they were stupid or couldn't understand. And yeah, there were some adult jokes where I was laughing, and my son looked up at me and he goes, why was that funny? You will understand that joke in a couple years. Not looking forward to that, but you will. So So all that to say, the movie was enjoyable to watch, as shockingly heavy as it could be at times. And I'm not going to go deep into the details of the plot or anything like that. But yes, you will, as an adult, probably look at this movie. So, oh, what's this movie? Read the synopsis and just keep on. No, not for me. Because the movie is about a superhero squirrel. Yeah. So I had about that where I say, okay, all right, I'll watch this with you, bud. And, you know, we've got some time before you got to go back to your mother. So let's have some time to just sit down and enjoy this. And man, I was just completely shocked. Now, there are elements of this movie that are juvenile. There is some slapstick comedy, some physical comedy that I'm not a big person to slapstick. You know, but was the slapstick in this movie so bad and out of place that it kind of, you know, made me cringe? Almost. But honestly, you know, after a certain point, I was so invested in the real point of the movie, the real, you know, meat and potatoes of it, that I sort of just, oh, okay, creative decision. I would have done it differently, but then, you know, maybe if I directed this or written this, it wouldn't really be appropriate for kids. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie because of that. Because I appreciate it was intelligent and smart. It's not going to be for everybody, and it may be the kind of movie you watch once and go, and appreciate. Maybe the kind of movie you watch once and go, that sucked, and that's it. You never go back to it, and it's fine. It may be the kind of movie you never want to touch. It may be the kind of movie you watch once and go, okay, that wasn't too bad. I get what he was saying, and you know, I get where he's coming from with that. Or you may love it. You know, now on a scale of, you know, 1 to 10, am I going to say this thing should get an Oscar? No. It did, but again, there were aspects of it that talked to me personally, which is part of the reason I think it made it stand out in my mind. You know, but I'm also specifically saying that so that if you are going to go to watch the movie, you can understand it may not speak to you on the level it spoke to me. And it just may not be as relevant to you, and that's okay. That's okay. But I still would argue that this movie is well written. It's actually surprisingly well acted. You know, definitely there were some hammed up scenes, but that's what that character is supposed to do: ham the scene up. There were some scenarios that were a little hammed up and silly, but again, it's you know, I actually ended up not, you know, even those few times I almost did cringe. I said, yeah, who cares? Yeah, by this point, this movie has earned so much for me, so much respect for me that, you know, it has a lot of capital to cash in if it wants to end on a much lower note than I you know, had hoped it would, I guess is a way to look at it. So Flora and Ulysses, I think it's got a great life lesson in it that can speak to kids, can still speak to adults. Adults can still appreciate it. Kids can still appreciate it. And I would absolutely recommend this movie. Even if you just watch it once. You know, just watch it once, you know, and if it's not for you, it's not for you. That's fine. But I would absolutely recommend this movie. So, a good review, 2 thumbs up, you know, 4 stars, 80%, 85% on, you know, the tomato meter. I don't know. I should probably come up with a scale. I'll think about that later. But anyway, so yeah, I would recommend this movie for the reasons I said. So, okay, this is Wintermute signing off. I'll see you later this week.